that kind of videotape. It's simply amazing that two former police officers, actually survived that. We're talking today about amazing survival stories caught on videotape. You just watched as Bob and Bob there were trying to deal with a suspect, a man who had a bomb in the car. They negotiated with him for 3 hours, and just as they were walking away, the guy pushes the toggle and boom! It's amazing that you guys are still here. Some folks had some questions in the audience. I know that you did for Bob. Yeah. Bob, stand up for me.
Yeah, I just want to know if you ever had any type of more extreme experience.
You want something more exciting than that?
I mean, getting shot at,
Yeah, like bombing, wasn't enough. Bob, in your line of duty, I would think that might be the case. Talk to us.
I've had it happen. I was shot at a couple different times, yes, but that was extreme.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm curious to know, how did that experience change your lives, if at all? Like, did your outlook change on life, or did you live life differently knowing you came so close to dying?
Yeah.
I'd like to answer that. My life has changed significantly. I feel very strongly that I'm more family-oriented. I know there was someone sitting on my shoulder that afternoon. I become closer to God, and technically...
My next guest came closer to God, too. I remember this story. Many of us were glued to the tube. As a news reporter, I remember covering this story and being so much following it. My next guest stared death in the eye. He and 83 passengers of an Air Florida flight plummeted into the Potomac River after an icy takeoff.
The height of rush hour in a severe snowstorm. An Air Florida Boeing 737, Flight 90, taking off from Washington National Airport for Tampa. In the severe weather, something goes wrong, and the jet shears off the tops of cars and trucks on Washington's 14th Street Bridge. The jet, carrying a near full load, crashes into the Potomac River, and through a gaping hole in the ice, only debris can be seen. Helicopters circle desperately, searching for survivors.
And we have one of them with us today. From Spokane, Washington, Joe Stiley, one of only 5 out of 83 people to survive that tragic crash. So nice to have you. Joe, I tell you, we get on those planes and we feel that little rumble and all of us grab the seat. And I think that all of us fear what happened to you might happen to us. Tell us how it happened. When did you first realize there was trouble?
Oh, I think I first realized that we had trouble before we ever backed out of the gate with that airplane. We had a blizzard going on in Washington, D.C. that morning, and we'd had, I think, a week or so of below freezing weather, and the Potomac River was frozen. There was probably 6-8 inches of ice on the top of the river at that time, and we'd had 6-8 inches of snow that morning. And when I got to the airport, I was able to get a parking space at DCA, so that's kind of day it was.
That lets you know there weren't many people traveling that day.
Yeah.
Did anything happen? You know how some people say, I had a feeling just before I got on that plane. Did you have any feelings as you look back?
I don't think I had any feelings before I got on that plane, but I certainly had some feelings before. There were times when I wanted to get off that plane before it crashed.
It took off. Well, it did not make it past takeoff very much so. It crashed into the river, and I'm just trying to think, what does one go through? Take us inside that cabin. What happened?
Well, at the time I was traveling quite a bit. I traveled to Europe, I traveled to Asia, I traveled to the New York area and Stamford, Connecticut, right up the road from here, Chicago and Florida, and I was probably traveling twice a week, more or less on the average. I was pretty familiar with the performance of the airplane, the Boeing 737, because in fact I had flown that same flight less than a month earlier and probably flown it 2 or 3 times. So I was used to what the airplane felt like. I had been a pilot and a flight instructor myself, and I think a lot of that training kind of contributed to my mental attitude in ways that caused me to analyze what was happening that day.
And you knew there was trouble, I would think.
I knew there was trouble when we started down the runway because the aircraft wasn't accelerating normally. As we went by what's called the VOR station on the right going down the runway, I knew we were way behind schedule, so to speak. My executive assistant, a lady by the name of Nikki Felch, was riding with me, and I turned to her and I said, I think we're in trouble, just do what I do. By which I meant, get into a good crash position and let's wait this out.
And And when you found yourself in that river, what was going on? Because I think you had broken like every bone in your body in this icy water.
Well, not every bone in my body. I was pretty well, actually, I was pretty badly broken up my left side, and Nikki was badly broken up her right side. She had been to my left in the airplane, and I think when we had two impacts. We hit the bridge, the 14th Street Bridge in downtown Washington, and I learned later a lot of cars that were on top of that bridge because they were stalled in the blizzard. And then we hit the water itself, and I don't know, the impact of those two hits, I thought we were going to abort the takeoff roll because it felt abnormal. I never really expected to get that far.
Joe, when you were sloshing around in that water, they're freezing, and there are people dying, and there are people screaming, and there are rescue people coming, and it's your son's birthday.
Yeah, it was. My son Jay was 12 that day.
What was going through your mind?
I think I reverted to training. I had had some training in the military, and I'd been, had a lot of safety first kind of training as a pilot, and I was executing the checklist. I think I was lucky because the cold in the river kind of kept the shock from setting in at the same rate it would have. A good part of what was on my mind was to stay in charge of myself.
Well, let's take a look at this video. Joe is staying in control of himself, and as all hell is breaking loose around him there. Explain what's going on, Joe.
Well, by the time this helicopter, that's a Bell Ranger from the Park Police, U.S. Park Police, flew over from Anacostia across Washington. That's Nikki Phelps that they're lifting off now, who was a stewardess that was dumped into the river. She was sitting in the jump seat where the tail broke off of the airplane. And she was relatively unscathed. The three of the survivors, I think, were dumped in. This is kind of the debris that was in the river after the crash that we had to come up through. Nikki and I came up from within the airplane. And this is me trying to hold on to Priscilla Torado. Every time we hit those ice packs, I kind of lost a couple ribs and a little bit of my grip on her. She lost an infant son, her husband, and her glasses that day. I towed her as far as I could, but I couldn't carry her any further. And
Joe, I think it's amazing that half of your body is broken and you are helping other people trying to save your own life. Oh, wow.
Well, those ladies couldn't hold on by themselves. When the helicopter first showed up, he dropped life rings like that. This is a fellow by the name of Lenny Skutnik, who jumped in. I remember him jumping over me to go in after her at that point.
I think the nation was gripped to these types of shots back then. It's amazing. Joe, when you go through something like that and most everybody on that plane but 5 people lost their lives, what did that do to you, your life, your direction?
I heard Bob comment a few minutes ago about, in answer to a question about how you changed, and I know I value life. That was my son's 12th birthday. I was traveling because I thought I had to. If I had it to do over again, I wouldn't take a birthday away from my kids like that. And I've been asked, was there a reason I was saved? Maybe it was so that my son wouldn't have that milestone every day, and I thank God for that.
I know.
And I just saw my 5th grandchild about 10 days ago was born.
Congratulations. Congratulations. When we come back, we're going to meet a woman who has one Mother's Day story to tell. She almost lost her life to Jaws, the jaws of a 20-foot whale, that is, who dragged her down into the ocean depths. And later, from the seas to the skies, a courageous helicopter news pilot risked his own life to stop a high-speed chase. And it's all caught on videotape.